Well, a warm welcome to all of you to this Zoom gathering. Here we are, you and I, assembled for the fourth time. We're here with the uncomfortable and inconvenient truth about a climate crisis. In fact, climate crises in our laps and in our hearts. As we begin, Corey has some logistical items to share with us. So Corey, would you share those with us today?
Yes, good evening, and it's wonderful to see you all again. As we have done on previous calls, we will ask you to stay on mute for most of the time, particularly when we're in presentations. There will be one breakout room, and then we will have a couple of times when we'll do some group sharing, one which will be substantial at the end. We also just would like to request that when the presentations are going on, that you not use the chat. That can be distracting to those who are presenting. There will be times when we will invite you to use the chat, or when we're in the plenary, when there's not a presentation going on, when you can use the chat. So those are the requests that we make. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Corey. And as we move on this evening, I'd like to recall to you that we've spent the last 3 months exploring Laudato Si on care for a common home. The encyclical, includes a call for a rapid phase out of coal, oil, and gas, and it's been a galvanizing message for organizations and dioceses and churches. So now it's time for us to take on, in some way or another, some practical ways to care for our common home. It's an inconvenient truth, as Al Gore phrased it by way back 17 years ago, 2006. Laudato Si offers a poignant, inconvenient truth. When Pope Francis calls for a rapid phase out of coal, oil, and gas. Happily, many communities of nuns and sisters have divested from companies who pollute. Those include the Benedictine Sisters of Ferdinand, Indiana, the Sisters of Loretto in Kentucky, the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth, Kentucky, and the Ursuline Sisters of Louisville, as well as the Dominican Sisters of Peace in Springfield, Kentucky. None of us needs a review of the current crises in our common home. Numerous and ubiquitous floods, hurricanes, droughts, record snows, heat waves, tornadoes, where they've never hit before. It's that inconvenient truth at work. I have a confession to make here that back in 2006, when Al Gore published that magnum corpus, I paid only passing attention to it. I didn't read the book, though I was aware of it. But since then, I have seen some tragic, inconvenient truths in Nicaragua, Central America. I think it was in 2012, several companions and I visited a parish in the coffee-producing mountains of Esquipulas, Nicaragua. All around, we could see what was happening. Coffee growers shared with us the inconvenient truth they were living firsthand. They showed us something they had not seen before. It was a coffee blight that was caused by some unknown peste, as they called it. It's a plague that was invading their coffee plants and destroying their principal source of livelihood right in front of their eyes. All because rainfall had become more erratic and droughts prolonged. When we asked, the coffee producers pointed to the source of the plight without hesitation. The answer, cambio del clima, climate change. For them, less coffee meant greater poverty. That Nicaraguan reality was prevalent all over Central America during a few years ago. In our last session, on March 28th, I mentioned that sometime, the rubber must hit the road for all of us, with those inconvenient truths of climate change in our hands. That where and that time is what we will be doing tonight and beyond. In this April session, we hope you will be encouraged to put your concerns and your talents to the task of caring dramatically for our common whole. I hope you've had a chance to check out the options in a note sent to you just this past March 9th. I hope you've had a chance to check out all the options that note sent to you on Monday, April 17th from David Flynn. It's interesting that while we were parsing the encyclical in January, February, March, just this past March 9th, Cardinal Michael Zerny spoke at Gonzaga University, his alma mater. Cardinal Zerny is the Vatican prefect for what's called the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development. Dicastery is a word that means office. In this case, an office for integral human development. Put simply, Cardinal Zerny is in charge of putting Laudato Si into action around the world. No small challenge. In his Gonzaga University address, Cardinal Zerny noted, the real problem is not convincing ourselves that climate catastrophes are happening, but rather it's indifference and despair in the face of those catastrophes. Cardinal Zerny also noted the cooperation between the Vatican and the Stockholm Environment Institute. This Stockholm Institute is an international nonprofit research and policy organization that deals with the environmental and development challenges, connecting science and decision-making. It's notable that this Swedish institute has offices in California, Massachusetts, and Washington State. And at that Gonzaga address, Cardinal Zerny noted the urgency of collaboration between the Vatican and the Stockholm Environmental Institute. In that spirit of collaboration, Cardinal Zerny proposed the Laudato Si Platform to respond to the crises sparked by ecological disasters. Tonight, we'll talk about that Laudato Si Action Plan so that you and I can be agents of change in both the letter and the spirit of Laudato Si. In the encyclical, Pope Francis notes early on in paragraph 14, everyone's talents and involvement are needed. So, even with indifference and despair all around, you and I just can't quit. Each of us has talents and energies to get involved. We all know the challenges humanity faces are enormous, indeed critical. It's that inconvenient truth, again, staring us in the face in every news cycle. As Francis notes, in that same paragraph, Laudato Si, paragraph 14, all of us can cooperate as instruments of God for the care of creation, each according to his or her own culture, experience, involvement, and talents. And I dare to add, maybe our hesitation even, to join the fray. This Laudato Si Action Platform has the goal to generate a people's movement with an alliance of churches, non-religious communities, families, educational institutions, various organizations and governments, to rally to preserve Mother Earth, our common home. The platform invites families, educational institutions, including primary and secondary schools, universities, and other centers of education. The economy, involving workers, businesses, farms, and cooperatives. Religious orders, parishes and schools, hospitals and healthcare centers. And of course, it involves us all, we. Various organizations and groups like lay movements and communities, and means various organizations and groups like lay movements, communities, NGOs, foundations, and communication centers. So this is a sevenfold platform we'll be focusing on tonight, and hopefully beyond tonight, as we'll see. No one can be left out. Children and youth, female and male adults, seniors like some of us, It's no less than our common home that is at stake. Recently, David Horvath and I were having coffee at Honey Brothers Coffee Shop here in Louisville, talking about tonight's session. My coffee was served in a small paper cup, and there it happened. On the coffee paper cup was a timely quote from Wendell Berry, and it reads this: "The care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. To cherish what remains of it and to foster its renewal is our only hope." How serendipitous that quote was for us. Certainly, it is an echo of Laudato Si and the multiple crises of our time, care for our common home. So it's time for us to take a look at those goals of the Laudato Si platform and fit ourselves into the platform somewhere. So I ask you and me, where is your calling and mine? Your preference and mine? Where can you and I hit the road? And finally, I quote the ever optimistic Pope Francis. When he said, "There is reason to hope that humanity at the dawn of the 21st century will be remembered for having generously shouldered its grave responsibilities." So let's get busy.
Thank you so much, Jim. Let's get busy. We know that in order to get busy with care and intention, we also need time to be still. And so this evening, for just a couple minutes, I want to invite us into some quiet. And in that quiet, I invite you to sit with these questions that Father Jim offered us just a few moments ago. Actually, I'm going to focus on one of the questions. Where and how are you being called? Where and how are you being called? And so what I would invite us to do, what I would invite you to do, is actually to close your eyes, maybe even put your hand on your heart, and call on the guidance of the Holy Spirit, asking the question, what is mine to do? Where am I being called? And in the quiet, pay attention to any clarity that arises. What is mine to do? What clarity do you have about the answer to that question? We know that the question, what is mine to do, has an ever-evolving answer. And sometimes the answers are crystal clear, and sometimes we have just points of clarity, and other things seem fuzzy. And so before we go into the next part of our presentation, I would love to invite a few people to speak, if you feel so called. What clarity do you have about where you're being called? And you can use the raise hand feature, which is down at the bottom of your screen where you see reactions. If you click on that, you'll see raise hand. Trish.
There's a environmental stewardship team at my parish that we've been working together for just 2 years now, and we've gotten very busy. And there's a lot more that could be done, but I just felt like I was being called to stay with it and stay on track and keep listening.
Yeah, thank you. And the work will never end. And so I think really we can take comfort in that. There is that beautiful prayer that's often attributed to Oscar Romero that talks about how we are not the master builder. It's not all ours to do. And so we can stay attentive to what is ours to do and keep listening, as it sounds like you all are in the process. Thank you. Would anyone else like to respond with pieces of clarity, or even with what seems fuzzy? If that is what is true for you, then that honest answer is also welcome. Connie?
I am a teacher at a elementary school through middle, and I think educating is where I feel called, educating myself and then sharing what I learn with others, with my students, maybe starting it out starting them younger.
Yeah, thank you. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful education for them too. Carol.
I've become aware that even as I'm doing work to try and promote the Laudato Si, I have to get away from the screen and the emails and actually get into the mountains or out, out working in the woods, I get my hands into it a little bit more, and that's just part of who I am. And I think not losing sight of the forest for the trees, or the trees for the forest, either way.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is just part of the work, right, is in a very tangible way being in connection with the rest of the world, with the rest of creation, whether it's the mountains or the water or the wherever we are, or your garden in the backyard. Being in contact will help us to be more faithful to this work. Joanne?
Since I'm approaching an older age, into my 80s, I find I want to do things, but sometimes I'm held back because of disability or something like that. I did get involved with a group that was fighting LG&E against Bernheim Forest. I felt wonderful that I could join that group, but then they moved to locations that were not easy for me to get to. So to me, it's a little frustrating in some ways that I can't participate in ways I would like to.
Thank you for sharing that. And as I'm listening to you also, what's coming up for me is just the reminder that rest is also a part of, and being in slowness and honoring our capacity. As we honor our own capacity, perhaps we can be more attentive also to the capacity of our earth. And I think that there is gift in that. Tom?
Yeah, sorry, I'm one of the greater expanded group of seniors that are having allergies now due to climate change. At the beginning of all this, in fact, several months before Laudato Si sessions began, I took a look at this, and I was just overwhelmed. I said, what can I do?" And and bottom line was, I decided that what I need to do right now is listen, look for everything, hear everything that anybody is saying about Laudato Si. What are people doing? And it was amazing. I began to hear and become aware of how many little and large organizations there are that are actually doing something. I didn't take any action at that point because all I wanted to do was listen and be aware. And I'm just amazed how much is actually going on out there. So in fact, I heard a new one tonight. The other night I listened to Sister Curtis, I think it is, from the Ursulines doing a talk, and just wonderful ideas and inspiration. So that's what I have to share for the moment.
Thank you. Yeah, listening is an important part of the process. And, as far as what we can do, I have a ring that I wear every day, and I'm sure you've heard this before, even not on my ring. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And very often when we begin that journey of 1,000 miles, we don't know where that first step is taking us. It's about being willing, having the courage to take that first step. And at this point, David, I think I'm going to turn it over to you, David Horvath.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you everyone for your sharing and your remarks. Our session tonight is going to seem packed in one sense, but more spacious in another, because we wanted to be able to provide more conversation with groups of folks who are coming from the same sector or the same perspective, as well as to hear people's comments freely in between our presentations. So I want to thank Jim also for introducing the Action Platform. We've been hinting at the Action Platform for 4 months now, because the Laudato Si really was written with the Action Platform in mind, I believe, for Pope Francis. And so for the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to deal with the platform and its goals in a lot more detail before we dive into further discussion. So we sure have our work cut out for us as a church and as citizens of planet Earth. That work, as laid out by Pope Francis, is for a collective of actions with plans for individuals and for communities. Each plan will outline tangible actions that you, and our communities will take to meet the 7 Laudato Si goals. Learning these goals themselves is an education. The Pope launched the Action Platform as a 7-year process to animate our good thoughts and prayers, and to take the education we've been doing together these past 3 months to take decisive action here and now. As he said, decisive action here and now. Jim just showed us the various sectors of the church and communities that are expected to embrace and participate in the ecological transformation called for, using 7 goals as touchstones. Looking at the 7 goals, we see that the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are overarching goals. They provide a deep framework for all the goals, and they combine for our approach to an overall integral ecology. So let's look at the goals and clearly define them and describe some examples of work on that goal and what that work might look like. At the top of the list, and the first goal, demands a response to the cry of the earth. A greater use of clean, renewable energy and reducing fossil fuels in order to achieve carbon neutrality, and of course, the political will to see these policies through internationally. It would include promoting sustainable agriculture, both locally and with larger scale farms, and to support the efforts to protect biodiversity and guaranteeing access to clean water for the entire planet. I'm going to try to hide this little gray line. In this age of continued war making and preparations for war, I want to also shine a light on the Action Platform relative to nonviolence, and show it as an essential way of following the ways of Jesus. Military activities are fossil fuel intensive, incredibly so, and contribute to climate change. And the unthinkable use of a singular nuclear warhead could cause widespread drought and unimaginable losses of billions. In its fullest iteration, this ecological transformation is rooted in personal and communal systemic conversion to nonviolence. The next goal is the response to the cry of the poor. And it's another one of the two overarching goals of the 7. This goal defends humans in all forms of life on Earth, with special attention to most affected and vulnerable groups, such as indigenous communities, migrants, and children. The work requires the change in unjust systems and engaging root causes of poverty, of violence, and of oppression. It includes an analysis and improvement of social systems and social service programs in order to effect those changes. An example down to earth, which currently resonates here in Louisville, given this last month, is our response to community safety in the face of gun violence, poverty, and mental health issues. The next goal focuses on ecological economics. So what exactly is that? On a global level, this is a complex goal since it involves sustainable production, fair trade, ethical consumption and investments, divestments from fossil fuels, and reworking any economic activity harmful to the planet and her people. It's an attempt to look at humans embedded in our own life support system, not separate from the environment. And we must protect care workers and the dignity of labor. The people who care for our weakest and most vulnerable should not be the lowest paid workers in our community. And finally, in this goal, to support a circular economy, actually supporting multiple circular economies, which are basically markets that give incentives to reusing products rather than scrapping them and extracting new resources. Economies are really huge, right? But economies and economics is also something meaningful and important to the personal. And the next goal reflects that, and that's the adoption of a simple and sustainable lifestyle. Maybe we can't deal with the World Bank, but we know our lives. And so we ask, why is simple living so hard? Our consciousness easily goes deep into the wonders of God's creation. We can take the delight in the things that truly matter and learn to let go of what might be holding us down. By learning to let go, we learn to live more deeply. Remember how we had just defined a circular economy. That goes for us and the economies of our small worlds too. We've talked previously about these lifestyle changes, which basically are very practical and family focused. It means just a sobriety in the use of our resources and energy, avoiding single-use plastics, adopting a more plant-based diet by eating less meat, and greater use of public transportation. Really, all forms of personal choice. And of course, this list goes on in the many ways we can transform our own lives to become more ecologically friendly to the planet. Ecological education is another goal that it sounds quite simple, and it really is, but it's a huge job. And that's rethinking and redesigning how we teach in the spirit of integral ecology. This includes our educational curricula and our educational institutions. And ecological education would lead us to explore environmental issues, getting out from behind the screens and getting out there to engage in problem solvings and to take actions to improve the environment. As we begin to understand issues, we develop the skills to make informed and responsible decisions in our lives on planet Earth. And again, from the peacemaking and nonviolence perspective, this kind of education also helps us to acknowledge that there is ecological violence that is so powerfully described in Laudato Si. We can see it and name it and by just looking around us. So we build the capacity for nonviolent lives, relationships, and movements. This kind of education, training, and skill building can help interrupt violence and protect vulnerable communities. I'm thinking of programs like Louisville's own Peace Education Program and the work that Corey does with nonviolent communication. Like education, economic spirituality shouldn't sound so strange or difficult for us. And I just love this description. Ecological spirituality springs from a profound ecological conversion and helps us to discover God in all things, both in the beauty of creation and in the sighs of the sick and the groans of the afflicted, aware that the life of the spirit is not dissociated from worldly realities. So this encourages us to recover that spiritual vision of God's creation and encourage a deeper contact with the natural world in a spirit of wonder, praise, joy, and gratitude. Spirituality. It's said that few groups do ritual or liturgy better than Catholics. So let's promote creation-centered liturgical celebrations, develop ecological catechesis, prayers, retreats, formation programs from cradle to grave. And the last of the 7 goals is last for a reason. Without it, we're not going to get much done. Look at Margaret Mead's truism. Now, no doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And that last goal is called community resilience and empowerment, which is basically just community engagement. And when we hear the word community, we mean full participation from the individual and family to the largest institutions and systems. And the emphasis is on action. Action to care for creation at the local, regional, national, and international levels. The word participatory means that the work must be pursued simultaneously from top down and bottom up. Community engagement promotes advocacy and people's campaigns, encourages rootedness in local territory and neighborhood ecosystems. As an example, we see the good systematic change work being done by the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. For another, there is a direct line until the present of the Poor People's Campaign formed by Dr. Martin Luther King and others in 1968. And the Poor People's Campaign Kentucky joined with others around the world these past 2 years to focus on all of the issues, focused on issues of militarism, poverty, and the environment. And again, from the perspective of a nonviolent movement for integral ecology, a Laudato Si future depends on mobilizing worldwide people power movements for structural change. Of course, a shift to nonviolence will not be easy or quick. That's an understatement. But in the long term, it will be the most lasting, just, and sustainable way to a Laudato Si future. This community involvement goal of the Action Platform challenge is totally in line with the Pope's traditional thought process. It's a time to see, a time to judge, and a time to act. And to repeat, the Pope says it's time to act, folks. So the fulfillment or not of the 7th goal will be the final judgment on the success or failure of the other 6. It means that Christianity turns away from an individualistic, self-absorbed relationship with Christ and a disengaged complicity in the face of desperate cries of Earth and her peoples, and moves towards the shared goals of integral ecology. So reviewing the goals of the action platform, we see that they empower the universal church and all the people of goodwill to respond to the cries of the earth and the poor. We have been exploring the ancient teachings of our faith in the light of today's ecological crisis. And Laudato Si teaches that everything is connected. And as a result, we all suffer. And the poorest and the most vulnerable suffer above all. We face a complex crisis that is both social and environmental. We are encouraged to evolve spiritually in a recovery of God's vision and a promise of creation, to have better contact with God in the natural world, to cultivate a spirit of wonder, praise, joy, and gratitude, to create ecological retreats, prayers, spiritualities, and catechesis. In a spirit of community involvement, we are invited to find ways to advocate for the natural world, locally, regionally, nationally, and globally. And finally, we are encouraged to find a new belonging in local territories, neighborhoods, families, and faith communities. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Corey.
Thank you so much, David, for giving us many, many ideas about what is possible. What is possible? I actually, as I offer that question, that is not the question that I am going to invite us into right now. Once again, I'm going to invite us into some quiet. And the question is not what is possible, but what is the vision? What is the vision that you have of the world that you want to see? Because while it may not be possible in our lifetimes, just like any good mission and vision statement of an organization, to get to that place, we have to have a vision of what we're moving toward. To, as we're taking that first step of 1,000 miles, we may not know where the path is going to take us, but we have a vision of what's at the end of that path. And so I want to invite us again, if it's comfortable, to close your eyes in stillness and engage your imagination. What is the vision of the world that you want to see? Maybe part of that vision is pristine waters with no trash. Maybe a part of that vision is imagining that nearly all the energy that we're using is coming from the sun rather than fossil fuels. Maybe a part of that dream is every child in a school having access to gardens and learning that as part of their, as an integral part of their education. What can you imagine, even if you don't know all the steps towards getting there? What is your highest vision? And I encourage you to imagine it in your mind, or if you're a word person, to describe yourself. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? Having a healed earth and healed humans. Before we go into the breakouts, let's hear from a few people. If you want to put something in the chat about the vision that you want to work toward, then you can put something in the chat. Or if you'd like to use the raise hand feature and speak aloud of the highest vision that you hold, or one element, maybe not the full vision, but just so that we can be inspired by one another. A world in which everyone is safe, their whole person. Yes, yeah. What else? What is a piece of the vision that you hold for our Earth? Helen?
Every child would have a place to play that was just as wonderful as the wealthiest child in the world.
Yeah, every child having a wonderful place to play. Thank you. That is often inaccessible to the most vulnerable and the poorest. Thank you. Yes. Oh, I'm seeing lots of things coming in the chat now. A world pure. Folks will quit using it as a dump. Our Earth free of fear. Woo! Where there is respect for everyone and everything. A world where everyone cares about our Earth and each other. What beautiful visions. Every child to have clean water to drink and clear air to breathe. I hope that's every person, not just every child. Earth's beauty restored and war ceases. Before anyone takes any action, they consider the people who will be affected by it. Greater respect for the animals that we eat. So these are part of our collective vision, and it is a collective vision. We are dreaming this into being together. Imagine all the people, a la John Lennon. Thank you. Yes, 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 yes. So holding this vision and other parts of the vision that perhaps you haven't articulated, we're going now to spend some time in the breakout rooms. Everyone neath the vine and fig tree. Yes, thank you. From the prophet Isaiah. So in our previous gatherings, you have been put in a breakout group by us. And after our last meeting, we asked you which, knowing that we are working towards this action plan and knowing that there are particular ways or places where you really want to live into action for Laudato Si, we asked you what group do you want to be in? If you wanted to be in the parish group, if you wanted to be in the individual and family group, or in the organizational group. And we took that information to form the breakout rooms. Except, welcome back. When we do things that we're not used to doing, sometimes it can feel clunky. That might be when we're on a Zoom call. That might be as we're trying to take action for care of the earth. Always when we begin something new, or often, maybe not always, but often it's clunky. So thank you for your patience and understanding with us. We're also, you may or may not have noticed, normally we have David Flynn as part of our team and he couldn't be here this evening. And so not having him on the team as we're doing this new thing also makes it just a little bit more clunky. So welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I'm not going to sing to you as I often do. We have just a little bit more presentation from David Horvath, and then we will end. And here I popped in and listened to some of the discussion groups, so I know there was some lively conversation going on, and we'll hear a little bit about that after we've heard from David again.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you all for your patience as we tried to get you into interest areas to discuss, but you realize that that's essentially where the work is going to spring. So as a community organizer, I've wanted to jump to this question from the very beginning of our time together. How the heck are we going to organize all this on so many levels? Simply little steps for little feet. So the first thing we do is we need to commit and enroll in the program, the Laudato Si program. That website will be sent to you. Corey, if she has a chance, can put it into the chat. But this is the main website at the Laudato Si Action Platform, which was created to help us all on every level do the work. So this first step is to enroll so you can be eligible to get all of their stuff, all their goodies. Enrolled participants will get access to all the resources to support the journey, including planning guides, suggested actions developed by people all over the globe, really, and direct contact with the community of peers and leading Catholic organizations to offer inspiration and accompaniment. Also, an annual self-assessment offers a way to clearly see and measure your progress and sort of keep your feet to the fire a little bit. It's a simple and quick, easy start. You basically supply a few pieces of information as to the group that you're coming from and the level of commitment you're applying towards. After you're enrolled, you can immediately begin to look for resources by sector, such as families and individuals, schools, parishes, etc. You'll be shown documents and videos and links to others who are on the Action Platform journey. In this example, you can see resources in English for congregations. And the best thing is that we can learn from other plans that are being formed. People who are enrolled are strongly encouraged to submit their own plans to the website and to the international effort so that others looking for plans don't have to reinvent the wheel. So for example, if we search for in the plans being submitted by families and individuals, we see that Lorraine and Bill Delahanty from St. Paul, Minnesota, are working through the goals. And here's just an excerpt where we show how they address the cry of the earth and their current and future actions. Kind of love seeing this, only drive your car 3,500 miles a year. That's pretty good. But Bill and Lorraine's whole document goes through each of the goals and what they see themselves doing. Or we could look by parish and we could see what's up with Our Lady of Woods in Lady of the Woods in Chicago Diocese, and they're focused on ecological economics and sustainable lifestyles. So you can see ecological economics is the implementation of the EPA portfolio manager to monitor parish utilities. That sounds really good. I don't necessarily know what that is, but it's something that parishes can do. Or in terms of a parish level sustainable lifestyle, talk about the recycling and waste in the entire parish operations to see if they can do something about the waste streams. And finally, I want to mention something that's also very important. And this is that the movement has great, the Laudato Si movement and the Action Platform has great opportunities to lead at every level. The Vatican and the Dicastery are encouraging the model of Laudato Si animators. They are training a robust network of people who work with and inspire each other through the Laudato Si movement. This is the opportunity to identify or self-identify an individual or her group whose responsibility, paid or unpaid in a family or a lot of organizations, and their job is to help guide and prod and plead and create and imagine and keep the eyes on the prize during the process of working on the Action Platform. These animators are being recruited right now in small and large communities, dioceses and families. They're for youth and farmers and liturgists. And it is the single most important step we can do to help us organize after making the Laudato Si commitment as we dream about our creating a Laudato Si world. So go and plan what you'll do this year and the years ahead. And another final quote from Laudato Si is, there is hope, standing on the firm ground of three fundamental and closely intertwined relationships: with God, with our neighbor, and with the earth itself. We commit to setting out on the long path of renewal. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, David. And so the fact that you are here means that you have made a commitment. And there were some discussions in your breakout rooms about what you're doing and about steps that you want to take. And I want to just emphasize again, every step is needed. And so you may have heard from someone something that seemed like a really big thing and you're not ready or in a position to do that. That's okay. Still, you can act. So let's hear from some folks. Again, you can put things in the chat about something you heard or something that you are doing, because really we want to end this note from that place of hope, from that place of possibility. What inspires you, and or what are you doing that might inspire others to action? And again, you can use the raise hand feature, or you can put something in the chat. I see. Start doing the right thing. Let people see it, and it may inspire them. And so, what for you is one of the right things that we might do? This is not just for Trish, but for everyone. What did you hear that inspires you? Or what are you doing that feels inspired for you, knowing that you probably got the idea from someone else? Jim.
I saw a long article in paper, the diocesan paper, about what St. Francis of Assisi did on their fish fries. They went everything is just recyclable that they use, no plastic boxes takeout for their takeouts, and even their knives and forks were made of some kind of material that it's environmental friendly. Very fine article.
Yeah, so being
what a way to, for fish fries.
Yeah, so many fish fries are so produce so much trash that is not recyclable, and so using things that are earth friendly that can be recycled, what a wonderful step. Thank you. Whipping out my metal straw and reusable to-go container. Thank you, Connie. Become visible in what you're doing, right? Because sometimes we don't need to say anything. We simply need to be doing it out in a way that people can see it. Susan, your hand is up.
Yes, I wanted to share. I had seen an article in the Record about a booklet, English version put out by the Vatican and the Stockholm Institute, called Our Common Home, A Guide to Caring for Our Living Planet. So I contacted the Vatican and ordered 700 of them for our parish, and they are sending them free. Now that we haven't gotten them yet, but they were delighted. They were delighted. So we're hoping to give it out to through our school as well as through our parish. So it's the encyclical, but in much condensed form with wonderful, colorful pictures.
Thank you.
Wanted to share that.
Yeah, so sharing resources within our parishes, within our schools, and particularly for those who, for whatever reason, may not read the whole encyclical, making it more accessible to people is what I'm hearing you.
Can you put that in the chat?
I can put the contact of the gal that I contacted at the Vatican. I was shocked. They were just so excited. I guess no one has really ordered any. So, and it was free, but I will put it in the chat. I'll try.
Thank you. Thank you. And I see take your own takeout containers when going to restaurants, being willing to share and educate other on your successes and challenges. And I think that's so important, right? Because the journey isn't always rosy. Sometimes there are stumbles along the way, and helping people to be aware that those stumbles might be coming and or to help them avoid is another way to keep this work going and to keep it hopefully joyful, or to move
Susan,
through
I'll
the
make sure
challenges.
Susan, we'll make sure that resource gets into the follow-up email that we do for everybody.
Okay, no, I'm typing it now. It's long.
Thank you. And we
I
can
would
hear
be
from
interested in hearing if some of you may be thinking about maybe not being the animator for a diocese, but how about an animator for your family or an animator for your book club? Or are you seeing yourself nudged in some way towards moving forward as a leader? Anybody thinking about that?
I'm seeing some
Just a
heads
little?
nodding.
Ah, the old nodding Zoom heads.
Mhm. Thank you. And a thumbs up. Thank you. Dottie,
Dottie Lockhart wants to be an animator.
you're on mute.
Okay.
I wanted to follow up on that containers in the restaurant thing. When we go to Guatemala, we encourage the 30 students that are with us to take a container that they can reuse, but take it to the homeless. And so we don't need it. We always have so much. Take it to somebody that will use it or eat it.
So sharing our resources too with those who may not have them. Thank you.
My son did that in San Francisco. So you don't have to go all the way to Guatemala to do that, Bob.
Yeah.
You can do it in
He got us in the habit of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so to decrease the food waste.
Right. And to share.
Yes. Let's see, in the chat, I want to investigate what is needed to become a green ribbon school in the Louisville area.
Here's a link.
Yep, thank you. And
What is a green ribbon school? It sounds like ecological education to me.
Pam?
I used to teach at St. Agnes School, and they did get the green ribbon certification. And I think there are 3 or 4 areas that they have to demonstrate and document that they are active in. The website will give a lot more information about it, but it's a fairly in-depth process. You really need to have the commitment of the school administration and faculty to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, friends, it is about that time. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. And I think before we close in prayer, I'm going to turn it over to Father Jim again.
Okay. As we depart, I'd like to express my appreciation to the team who guided us these weeks, these months. David Harvath, Corey Lockhart, David Flynn, who's my great-nephew from Nashville, and Barbara Aubrey, who shared her voice with us in prayer. I'm deeply indebted to all of them. I'm also grateful to all of you who have participated in these sessions at some inconvenience, no doubt. I hope that you profited from reading Laudato Si itself, because it's such a remarkable encyclical letter. I mentioned at one point during these weeks that this encyclical is written in a poetic and a mystical style that's so like Pope Francis. The encyclical has one part that is somewhat more technical when he writes about the economy and the environment, but that's only one part. But that is a very necessary part, as we know, we've discussed here tonight. Part of his dreams and thoughts that even the non-economists can drink in a little bit. Finally, I'll leave you with the challenging and poetic call of Pope Francis in paragraph 244 as he wraps up his encyclical. This is what he wrote. We come together to take charge of this home, which has been entrusted to us, knowing that all the good which exists here will be taken up into the heavenly feast. In union with all creatures, We journey through this land seeking God. We sing as we go. May our struggles and our concern for this planet never take away the joy of our hope. Let the community say to that, amen.
Amen.
And knowing that Pope Francis chose the name Francis because of Francis of Assisi, we will close in prayer with the Canticle of Creation.
O Most High, all-powerful, good Lord God, to you belong praise, glory, honor, and all blessing. Be praised, my Lord, for all your creation, and especially for our brother Sun, who brings us the day and the light. He is strong and shines magnificently. O Lord, we think of you with love and hope.
Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Moon and for the stars which you have set shining and lovely in the heavens. Be praised, my Lord, for our brothers wind and air and every kind of weather by which you, Lord, uphold life in all your creatures.
Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Water, who is very useful to us, and humble, and precious, and pure. Be praised, my Lord, for Brother Fire, through whom you give us light in the darkness. He is bright, and lively, and strong.
Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Earth, our mother, who nourishes us and sustains us, bringing forth fruits and vegetables of many kinds, and flowers of many colors. And I give thanks to you, and I will serve you in all humility.
May it be so.
Let us sing as we go. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here. It's been a pleasure.
And Jim, thank you for all you've done.
Yes.